You are live on 98.9 Northwest FM. This is the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James. What's something's made you happy in the last week, James?
I guess seeing movies with the boys on the weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I won't go too much into detail, but the leak at my house, which you guys know about, there's one step closer to being fixed.
Muscle top,
So
yay!
there's been progress in that regard. So
That's been a fairly long-running saga. Really.
very long,
Yeah,
over
so
a year. So it's good news, I guess.
That's great answer.
Yeah.
Also, joined by Callum. What's something's made you happy this week, Callum?
Yeah,
Come on, stay positive.
That's it. Every week I try to prepare myself ahead of time.
No, he doesn't.
Look, Shudder, to be honest, the streaming service. I was looking on it for a couple of days. There's some good stuff on there. I watched an interesting film called Shadow of God, which we're not covering this week. But just like, there's lots of mediocre movies on there which all have interesting things. And because it's kind of like Tubi in the sense that there's splatter shot.
Yeah.
It's like you can just find random stuff. And like obviously not all of them are going to be good, but there's interesting ideas in a lot of these films. So it's like a little playground of schlock.
Of horror.
Yeah, so horror movies and Shudder, especially with the changing of the seasons. I like winter's a good time, and the cold is a good time to watch horror films. So yeah, the cold has made me happy.
Yeah. As for me, something's made me happy, I guess, is I'm blanking.
Yeah, it's hard.
No, I guess Palace. Just Pentridge going to the cinemas here. That's been making me happy. Some good movies coming out recently. Some good movies coming out soon. That Chopped
Up made you happy?
That Chopped Up made me very happy. Yeah.
A report as well made me happy that the people who created Jedi Fallen Order are creating a new single-player Dungeons & Dragons game.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because they're a good... I know we have complicated feelings about Star Wars in this program, but it was a good game, well-constructed game. So it's, hopefully it's good, and hopefully, Hasbro doesn't interfere, which they tend to do.
I'm going to revise mine, be more specific. The Boysenberry Chopped Up from Palace Cinemas makes me happy. That was delicious. Much better than Village and Hoyts and all the other local chains we enjoy.
Palace has the best ones.
Yeah. Moving on, I guess tonight we're going to start off. Oh, no, we have some announcements.
Yeah, just very quickly.
Sorry, James.
From our time at PAX the last couple of years, we talked to the developers of the developer of Memories Reach, which was a really cool sci-fi puzzle game, and the demo of that is out on Steam now, so definitely check that out, Memories Reach. And also we talked to the dev of The Drifter, which is like a point-and-click adventure kind of horror action kind of thing. And that fully comes out on July 17th. So check both of those out, because those are two of the highlights of our PAX experience over the last couple of years.
When the Drifter comes out, we'll also post on the socials and stuff like that as well. And we'll post about Memories Reach. Yeah, both good games. Also, while we're on a little announcements, listeners, don't forget, if you're based in Sydney, you can see Residents and Matt Myers and co. At Supernova.
Oh, cool. Go support them.
Is that this weekend?
It's a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll keep...
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to go.
Nice.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. They're doing a panel and they're doing a screening.
We tried to... Was Supernova already done in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah, we missed it. Yeah, I think we applied, but they didn't get back to us. Maybe next year we'll go.
Yeah, so... Yeah. That little announcements covered, I think.
Cool. Comic-Con's coming up as well.
Yeah, we'll have a look. Have a geese.
Isn't that the one you went to and it wasn't very underwhelming?
Yeah, that's the one we went to last year. But this year I think they have some really cool guests. So maybe we might shoot our shot and just go...
it's like soon. It's like this weekend coming.
Oh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Never mind.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Getting everyone's hopes up.
Yeah.
No. Moving on, I guess we're going to discuss the new...
I'll bring her back first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Philippou
brothers.
Philippou brothers, yes.
Yeah, Danny and Michael Philippou, who are two brothers from Adelaide, who made were known for their Raka Raka channel on YouTube, like making crazy, over the top, silly videos. And then they came out with Talk to Me a couple of years ago, and personally, I love that movie.
Good movie.
Blew my socks off. I was like, not only one of the best horror movies of the last few years, but potentially an all-timer.
Quick question for you. I read that Talk to Me was originally going to be a studio film, like a big studio film, but they wanted too many concessions.
Yeah.
How do you go from YouTube to making a movie, and then the studios are just like, we want to make
skill?
Well, their
YouTube channel is also pretty big.
Their YouTube channel's huge, like huge. And I guess they also had the, I don't know, the work ethic or whatever. Or they had enough to show that they could get it done. But of course, like you said, like the studios are like, oh, we don't want it in Australia, and we don't want this, and this is too weird, and
Also, you've got to think of the transferable skills from making YouTube. They're already very well equipped at making video content. So there's no difference between making a high budget YouTube clip and a feature film in a like practical sense. Yeah,
and it's not just them as filmmakers, but obviously that have like a producers and people who would help to get the film made. And then when they showed it at where was it, Sundance or whatever? They showed it somewhere, and A24 bought it, and then it blew up, and so now they're sort of A24 darlings. That would be great. But bring her back. So I mean, anything they were going to do after Talk to Me, I was down for. And like pretty much very soon after Talk to Me came out, A24 announced they had greenlit a sequel, and the Philippou brothers decided to, instead of just going straight into the sequel, Talk to Me, instead of going straight to that, they were going to do like this other movie that they had an idea for, like sort of in between, to do a buffer, which is Bring Her Back. And I was really excited for this. I was really, really looking forward to it. And I think I like Talk to Me more overall, just because Talk to Me is more quote unquote fun. Yeah. And it was just more energetic, and it blew me away. Bring Her Back is a much quieter, slower, and sadder film. But that's not to say it's not good, because it is great.
They're very tonally different films.
Yeah, they're both horror. They both have lots of gore and weird supernatural bits, and they're both sort of lower budget.
As I said in my Letterboxd review, there's just misery here.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like
Talk to Me
beyond was it Beware All Ye Who Enter?
Like Talk to Me was like sad and had a lot to do with grief, and there was a lot of horror and gore, but there was like that energy to it, and there was like the teens kind of having parties and razzing each other and whatever. This one is mostly just sadness.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I think we joked, like, if we were ever to interview these guys, our first question regarding this movie would just be, is everything all right at home?
Okay?
Like, you're okay?
I think what's messed up...
Should we talk off the air?
Yeah, I mean, I think they talked about, when Talk to Me was coming out, about, like, some of their, their personal life, but I know that when they were making this movie, one of their close friends died, and the movie's dedicated to him at the end, and I'm just like, yeah, that's like, it sucks for anyone, but like, yeah, I mean, it's but they're such great filmmakers.
Yeah, I really like this one. I prefer it personally. I prefer it to Talk to Me, just because it has more of that witchy occult stuff that I love so much. And also the symbolism is interesting.
Should we give a synopsis first, because people know what we're talking about? So essentially, it's about a brother and a sister are sent to a foster. Their father after their father dies.
Older brother and younger sister are sent to live with like a foster
mother after the father dies.
And the daughter the younger sister is like
blind.
Mostly blind, visually
she has
impaired,
some sensitivity to light,
some light and shapes. And then there's some supernatural shenanigans going on, and creepy. And they have, the foster mother already has another foster younger like boy,
Oliver.
Who
he just looks like a weird kid. I leaned over to James. I'm like, it's always the weird looking kids.
Nathan has this thing of weird kids in movies.
I don't like.
It's
It's just weird kids in
It's
general.
like nails on chalkboard.
You know
too.
when you're like at the supermarket and there's a weird kid looking at you in the eyes and he's like eating a raw hot dog, and you're like, "There's something wrong with this child."
Something happened to you, didn't it?
I mean, we won't go into that now. But it's one of those things where it's just like, why are you doing these disgusting weird things?
Yeah, and
Can't
in
you
this
be normal?
case, it's like
the kid always has to have his head shaved because he's always got nits. Somehow there's always nits.
oh yeah,
And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
yeah, he's always got a snot bubble.
Yeah, like
it never pops. It just always it's always breathing in and out.
it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
The real horror is children. All
He's always got chocolate around his mouth, even though it's like
that's
I
it.
don't remember when he ate chocolate.
Yeah, it's that kind of shit. It's like, oh, shivers down my spine.
Yeah. Except in this case, the kid is super creepy and potentially deadly. Yeah, so that's the basis of it. I mean, we won't go into spoilers.
Yeah.
But it's more about, the grief and, the brother and sister losing their father and then their relationship and then the new foster mother who had lost her own daughter a year before, and so she's grieving. And so it's just a lot of grief, and there's themes of, child abuse, and obviously it's a very heavy movie.
Yep.
But because the Philippous are such great filmmakers, the movie is still what's the word? I want to use a delight to watch.
It's visually engaging.
It's engaging.
It's technically so well made, the cinematography, the sound design especially.
Yeah, the pacing is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just so well constructed.
So even though it's a very miserable film, it's engaging all the way through.
Yeah.
So you're never pulled out of the film because of what's happening on screen.
And unlike, you were just talking about Shudder, I watched a movie on Shudder recently called The Surrender. And that movie had some similar plot sort of themes and elements. And that was a low budget kind of horror movie as well. And I liked that. It was a good movie. But I want to know, what the budget of Bring Her Back is versus some of the other kind of lower budget horror movies we've seen.
Probably lower.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I'm assuming. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be much. But
the reported production budget for Bring Her Back was 15 million.
Okay, so it's not too low. Okay, that's fair enough because it does look really good.
Yeah.
But I just with whatever money they have, they're just really technically proficient. Just on that level, this is a very well-made movie. Well shot, well edited, music's great, sound design is probably top-notch, highlight. And the practical effects are some of the best in a long time, if not ever.
I remember it was very uncomfortable. Some of these scenes with the prosthetics, it is so well done. And this is what we want to see.
Yeah.
Leave the CG at home.
I was talking last week or a couple weeks ago about the Final Destination, the new Final Destination. I was like, when you do practical effects, do it. When you do gore, do it practically.
Yeah.
And this is a case of that being so effective.
It's disgusting.
To the point. When you always hear before a horror movie comes out, it's like, oh, people walked out, people threw up, people fainted. And I heard a little bit of that here, which I always roll our eyes. We're like, we're the horror boys with it. It's like, whatever. And then you watch the movie and it's like, that was nothing. But this one, I was gritting my teeth going
it had moments where I was like, oh no. Yeah.
So, and not only the effects, but then combine that with the sound design. It was just like, ow.
And also, I'm interested to know how they kind of deal with some of these scenes. Obviously, spoilers, but there are children actors involved. And I'm like, how do you also not traumatize the kids when you're putting all the makeup on and you're doing these sorts of things? And with some of the props.
We didn't ask David Willing that, did we? About keeping the kids away from some of the darker elements.
Yeah.
I think he mentioned it. I think that he did touch on that a little bit.
But especially when it's very more explicit in things
that's
in this
different.
movie.
Yeah, that's different.
My memory's not the best, but I'm pretty sure it's you make sure that they spend a lot of time with the actors involved.
Yeah.
But even just the prosthetics looking in a mirror with some of these things, you're like, no, it's nightmare fuel.
They probably play with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah. So just really insane gore effects, and I won't spoil it, but there's a scene with a knife and a scene with like a wooden kitchen bench.
Yeah, awesome.
Too much.
Brutal.
Absolute
Brutal.
filth. Yeah.
Like, owie.
But it's kind of what we want to see.
Exactly.
Because
it's effective. It's like,
it's
I get an emotional reaction and
it's like there'll be
even
a horror
physical
film,
reaction.
Like horror,
like, ugh.
you know, we watched Prom Queen the other week and when we talked about it. And, you know, that's like a slasher, a gritty slasher, you know, they're like blood and guts, whatever. But it's not as effective as the stuff you see Bring Her Back.
Tonally that's different.
Yeah,
but also
just in terms of the way that they
special effects wise.
They do mutilation and blood.
Yeah.
It's because it's CG heavy in Prom Queen.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the impact that it does in Bring Her Back, because Bring Her Back is tangible.
Yeah.
I would also say, like, the way it was handled in Bring Her Back, where it wasn't meant to be constantly in your face, and it was only a few isolated scenes where you see these kinds of effects, it had more weight.
Even though there's a supernatural element to it, all the violence was grounded and realistic, exactly. And that makes it more disturbing, because you're like, oh, that could actually happen to a real person, or that could happen to me, which is even scarier. I also liked how, I guess Talk to Me probably was like this as well, but Bring Her Back, like there's no jump scares.
No.
You don't need them.
Yeah.
Like, and again, this movie excels in what we like in horror, which is just a constant state of dread.
Yeah, exactly. The whole movie is just miserable. And just the tension the whole time.
There's almost an air of French New Wave, like, kind of sad bullshit. Like, I'm just being a smart ass. But there's no joy.
But I think that's why I like it more than Talk to Me. As I kind of like that misery feeling. Yeah. Because it's not common in... You know, this is going to sound like a dumb comparison, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre has this tension running through the entire film. Yeah. I get... It's like almost like that. It's different, but it's like... It's that kind of... Something bad is coming feeling you're watching the entire film. It's just the tone that it sets.
And it's also like the whole movie. So it's not just, oh, that scene was tense, or, they're building up to a tense thing. It's like the whole movie has that feeling of foreboding.
Yeah, and like Longlegs, it's like, I think A24 seemed to vibe with that, because Longlegs had a bit of that.
Was Longlegs Neon though?
Neon, sorry, yes, my mistake.
But I mean, they're kind of
they're both auteur pub, labels. Yeah. But yeah, that's why I like it more than Talk to Me. Even though like they're both great films, you know, but I really like the low. There's like the supernatural stuff is rooted in the occult, and like I like that low level exploration of it, where it's not over the top. There's no wizards, you know.
I like how they didn't really explain anything. It's just they showed and didn't tell.
Yeah, I would have preferred a little more exploration into the history of some of the stuff that we see, because I feel like there is a larger story that they like you said, they wanted to show, they didn't want to tell.
Yeah, but there is some cool lore,
but that lore is so meaty. Like there's definitely more to discover.
Well, I think we talked about this when Talk to Me came out.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, Talk to Me was the occult kind of lore of it was so mysterious, and that added to, I think, it was a benefit for the movie. But I saw an interview with the brothers who were like, oh, we wrote a whole thing about the backstory of the hand and the lore and whatever. And I was like, even though we don't learn that, you can feel it when you're watching the movie. Yeah. So I think Bring Her Back has a similar thing where it's like they've thought about how this occult and this background of these you know, magical like dark magic and like these rituals and
another thing I love is the element of the occult that we do see in the film is on a VHS tape. Yeah. And I love the fact that it's like this gritty
Russian
lo-fi
bootleg,
this lo-fi kind of interpretation.
This analog horror thing,
because it adds to the nastiness of it. Because like the thing about VHS is you could just find a VHS tape.
They're also like snuff films.
Yes. Also, the kind of the visions you see on these tapes are also quite disturbing. And almost in a way, they're more shocking than what you see outside of VHS.
Because it's also that mystery element.
Because it's got that Poughkeepsie tapes, gritty, like
you shouldn't be watching it.
But then it also adds to the lore of like, well, there's this underground occult, like European sort of circuit of you know, black market, dark web kind of thing going on. Like it adds to the
mystique of it all.
One thing I want to mention is we talked about recently with Final Destination, and we've talked about on the show before of the wave of elevated horror movies.
Yeah.
Like I guess Hereditary being the first of the sort of big wave. Or I guess there was Get Out and stuff like that. But and then, you know, it became kind of boring when every horror movie was doing that. And
but that's only because they're doing it as an afterthought.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is, Talk to Me and Bring Her Back are good examples of movies with heavy themes and with allegorical, metaphorical
they have
sort
some
of
elevation.
symbolism. And and there's an elevated element to it. But it's tied in well.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, it's so well made and quote unquote entertaining, even though they're so sad and
I think,
gory and
like,
whatever.
my biggest problem with this is I forget the movie's name. It was on
Relic.
Relic. That's
Relic,
the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one, the one where it's obviously just like an exorcism possession film, and they're like, no, let's add something. Let's make it about dementia. So she's eating her photos. Ha ha ha. The rest of it has no.
It's the thing about these brothers, the Philippou brothers, Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, is that you could attribute the label elevated horror to them, the movies they're producing, but when you look at the movies in and of themselves, they're just good quality horror movies, and because they're good quality horror movies in both cinematography and screenplays, people say, oh, they're elevated. Yeah. But if you were to take The Exorcist, for example, and you were to release it today, and it never existed before, people call it elevated horror because they'd interpret it from a lens of child abuse.
It's less schlocky than sort of maybe some slasher 70s slasher movies.
That's right. It's not Friday the 13th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just a well-constructed, well-told horror story.
That's a good point because we've talked before
so
about...
many classics would be considered elevated if they came out today.
Yeah.
Not because they would be elevated by today's standards, because, you know, they wouldn't be dealing with the same societal issues in the same ways.
The reason these elevated movies became a thing in the first place is because horror was treated as schlocky for so long. Yeah. Even the greatest of horror movies, people didn't take them seriously. You know, there were never awards considerations or whatever. Whereas it's only once they became elevated that people were like, oh, these can be...
So you mean the Texas Chainsaw Massacre isn't really about farm subsidies? The farmers, they're so poor, they have to kill people to eat to survive. They're doing this for you, America. Again, just being a smart ass. Moving on. But again, as you said, like this movie, you know, it has all of those things, but it's such a well done overall package. It can claim that label, and it's not like, for me, it's not a dirty word.
No, but I think it just it's an interesting thing because, you know, it's come up in the discussion before. But I think what Callum just said was important because it's like, it's like elevated it's
contextually
now it's just applied to anything that's like kind of well polished and and not as schlocky. But I think also why I do think they probably could have done a little bit more with tying in some of the abuse and the grief and that, but it's in there well enough where it doesn't feel tacked on and it doesn't feel lazy and
again,
it doesn't.
The pacing is nice. It's a tight, like 94, 95 minutes. It's not particularly
long. It was 40. I can't remember. Yeah.
It was like 97.
Yeah, but it's not long. It doesn't feel long. Yeah. But it does. Yeah. I just, you know, it's not perfect, but I don't like. I've seen some reviews of people going like, "Well, it's just it's so thin and there's nothing there, and then
rubbish.
And there's and I'm just rubbish. Like, come on, man. I mean, I cared about these characters, and that's another reason why I like the Philippou brothers movies, is because you've got these kind of likable characters.
They feel very natural.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because we're Australian. I don't know. But it's like...
No, you even feel bad about the weird kid during certain moments.
So maybe it's because we're Aussie, right? I don't know. But it's like we're watching these people on screen.
We've talked about culture cringe before where we watch an Aussie movie where it's like... Everyone is like, why are people talking like that? Why are people acting like that?
Not anymore. The Philippou brothers fixed it.
Exactly. Well, and there's been so many Aussie horror movies. There's been so many.
Talk to Me was the first we saw for a couple of years ago. And ever since then, it's been straight up. Australia's back, baby.
Yeah, but I like their characters. I like their way they write. It's like you could take all the horror and supernatural out of this.
Make it a drama.
It would still be a really well made, really good movie about this brother and sister losing their father and the grief and the abuse and this, that, and the other. And it would be great because these guys are really good at what they do.
I will just say we can get all the filth in Bird Eater, but we still can't get the proper uncut of Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
double standards.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the back to
I guess to be fair to Birdie, that it's about that toxic masculinity.
And to be fair to Dundee, they have to cater to the sensitive American audiences.
That's the thing. It's like the only reason it's cut in the first place is But I really like the characters in Bring Her Back, and there's a character moment where they're in the car and the brother lifts the sun visor in the passenger seat so his sister can
enjoy the light.
Enjoy the light and feel the sun. And I was like, oh, I really like that. And I'm like, that was probably my favorite moment in a quote unquote horror movie that is full of really great horror moments.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I like the movies, because I actually cared about if the characters were in danger, and I even cared about some of the quote like villainous characters.
Well, the interesting thing about this film is that even though like the villain is very much a villain.
Oh yeah, diabolical.
Yeah, that's right. There's also that part where that character is
you can sympathize.
Is also going through their own struggle.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like, I mean, the villain's basically a mustache twirling villain. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
No, I wouldn't say mustache twirling.
But it's that situation where nobody comes to that road organically. There's things that happen that make that person the way they are.
They weren't bad. They weren't always bad.
Yeah.
And they have a reason for what they're doing. I really like that. I think it's what separates it from a lot of other horror movies. So I mean, I really liked it. I'm really looking forward to anything these guys do.
Yeah, we're on board. One day we'll be like, please come on the show.
You know, I mean, if they weren't so busy all the time, they probably would. You
probably,
know, like get the boys on. So, I think even though this was a miserable movie, it's just so well done. I would like to watch it again.
It's actually really interesting if you see some of the reviews and from the actual publications that come out, and they're just like, it's exhausting, it's miserable.
Yes.
Like, yes.
But also I want to see it again because it's great.
I always go back to that meme with the two guys on the bus.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And like, you know, like not every movie should be happiness and joy.
No.
Like get down in the trenches.
That's one of the things. Like, isn't it these movie critics? Because like some movie critics can be very unfair, right? I mean,
critics in quotes.
I mean, you know, we're unfair. I'm sure a lot of people call us unfair, but isn't it a palate cleanse to have something so morbid? You know what I mean?
I mean, if you're anything like me and you watch all sorts of movies, you don't like. I don't just watch happy movies. No. I don't just watch one genre. I watch everything.
Like, you want to watch a broad range.
A well-made movie is a well-made movie. A good movie is a good movie. Schindler's List, one of the greatest movies of all time, miserable.
Yeah,
but it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Like, here's a few headlines just straight from Google. Top stories. Bring Her Back is repulsive, not revolutionary. Disagree. It is revolutionary.
It's like, repulsive and revolutionary and also really good.
Like a kind of a negative skewed headline. It is very risky. The Philippou brothers are knocking back Hollywood. I'm like, well...
I think the reason
but you frame it in a way that it's brave.
Yeah.
But some critics don't like it is because the story... Like, Talk to Me had an interesting story device in that the hand. No one had really seen that done before.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of horror hands.
There was lots of cursed objects, but this was...
And monkey paws and things, this is a more traditional horror narrative in a sense. You know, it deals with like, you know, from the trailer, you know, it deals with themes of possession and that type of thing, which is been done a million times. This film doesn't do anything new, but it also doesn't pretend to do anything new.
But it also didn't feel like...
It doesn't feel old.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't watching it being like, I've seen all this before.
What you were saying before is the characters are so strong and it's not about the horror. It's about the brother and the sister.
And the way they interpret it like visually and through
It's different. Yeah. It's not an exorcist with a Bible and doesn't have any of these things going on. It's a very low level interpretation of that thing, which is why it works.
Yeah, because the mystery works. Yeah,
it feels very organic.
Yeah,
one.
I know. I was just
one more headline.
Yeah,
from Paste magazine. Bring Her Back is a daunting exercise in unpleasantness. 5 out of 10. Disagree.
I'd use that exact same headline, but 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Because it's kind of just like, well, but you like, again, we've had this argument on the show before. People shouldn't be made to feel uncomfortable, but people shouldn't be afraid to challenge their boundaries with film and feel a little bit uncomfortable.
And I mean, it's all subjective, but, like, I know there are a lot of, like, critics who, audience members who anything they don't feel comfortable with automatically means it's bad.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, but you're a movie critic. You're getting paid a lot of the time to talk about these films. You need to come at it from... I think I mentioned this one time where I went to see I Saw the Devil when it came out at the cinema, and there was a guy sitting in front of our row, and he had like a little notebook that he was scrawling in. So I assumed he was a critic, or on the piece of paper was just it stinks.
At least, or maybe he just had a blog or a Twitter account or whatever. But every time there was because that movie's pretty extreme in its gore, and like he was like covering his eyes, and I'm like, so you. I guess, like I didn't ask him like what he was doing or if he liked it or didn't like it, but I was like, that affects your review. Like if I knew someone did that and didn't say that in their review, I'd be
how
like,
can you trust their opinion on the film?
And especially if they said, "Oh, it was awesome, I loved it, but I had to look away." I'm like, okay, but if they were like, "It was terrible, I had to look away."
There's a thing I think with some of the film critics that it's kind of just like, are you in it for the right reasons? You just want to watch the joyous movies. You have to explore the whole of the ecosystem. The whole
gamut.
It's also, I mean, everyone has their taste.
But you get paid to objectively talk about a film.
Yeah, like if you only watch romance movies and that's your thing, well, fair enough, right? Like
do a romance blog.
Maybe Bring Her Back's not for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
All the reviewers are wrong.
Yeah,
that's the point.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Callum liked it more than talked to me. I think me and Nathan like to talk to me more.
That's not saying that this is bad.
That's saying both Talk to Me and Bring Her Back are top-notch, high-quality, like incredible
they are in
horror
the
movies.
Australian movie, if not horror movie canon.
Yeah, like
they're
up there with the best of them. I just very quickly, the brothers have 2. I don't know if they've completed the scripts or they just have treatments or ideas, but they have 2 different ideas for the Talk to Me sequel. One of them is a direct continuation with the characters we saw in the first movie, and one of them's like an unrelated kind of spin-off with new characters. And I'm like, whatever they want to do, I'm down.
I think this is one of those cases where you can trust their writing.
Yeah.
They can be the best judge.
Yeah, especially like I said, when you watch the movie, even though they don't tell you a lot about the background of the hand and this, that, and the other, like you can tell there's a lot going on. There's a lot more to explore. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be down with whatever they want to do. And also, like, if they could do one as Talk to Me 2 and then the other idea as Talk to Me 3. And this is a case of when we always complain, or I complain about everything has to be a franchise now, everything has to have 100 sequels, and in this case they made one good movie and it was really good and it did really well, and so now they can make more, but they also have such fertile ground and such good ideas to base it on.
It's like Smile, where it's like, I'm not averse to seeing those films.
Yeah. Because it's like you got other things to explore.
Smile's a good example too.
They don't milk them.
That didn't. Smile 2 did enough the same, but also did enough different, and it ended in a way where we were like, "Oh shit!"
And it was technically well done.
Yeah.
And even though some of the grief elements or whatever might not have been the best, like it was overall, I was like, I kind of cared about what was going on. So yeah,
I guess we'll see. We'll be back with more right after these quick messages. You are back on the Tuesday Review live on 98.9 Northwest FM. So Bring Her Back, go see it.
Yes.
Good time. No, it's not a good time. It's a good time, not a happy time.
Good movie, yeah.
To quote Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails.
Oh yeah.
We're not here for a good time. We're here for a bad time. He said that at one of his gigs. And I think that's the attitude you should go into the film. Embrace it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the real horror movie of Cannes this year.
Yeah.
He got booed. That's funny.
Now this is a 180 from Bring Her Back.
Going on a completely different angle here, the other movie we watched this weekend was Wes Anderson's new film, The Phoenician Scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Another banger.
We are big Wes Andersons here.
Yeah, we are the Wes Andersons. I'm just gonna say I think we coined that term.
Yeah, I think we did.
Because I've seen Wes Andersons, I've seen Wes Fandersons, but I don't know about the Andersons. Yeah, we stand for Wes. Yeah, like, I mean, talk about highly anticipated. Anything he does, we're there.
I think I've said on the show before, The Darjeeling Limited is one of my favorite films.
And you only saw that sort of semi-recently.
In the last
couple
years,
years, yeah.
Same.
Yeah, and like he's just as much as people have what's the word I'm looking for? Soured on him, perhaps.
Yeah, and they have.
I think even though I would agree his earlier films are better than his later films, I still like everything he has done, and I still like his recent films, and I still want to see everything he does.
Yeah.
He's one of the few filmmakers where if he's got a movie, I want to be there opening weekend.
I think that the reason people don't like him is because he has a particular style, and ever since
it's subtly changing. I think.
Ever since Tenenbaums, would you say he's kind of kept to one, not visual style, but like one way of shooting his films?
I would say there's Moonrise Kingdom before and after. I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is
That's the first of like the full change to
kind of more arty, almost kind of play
period
theater-esque.
Yeah.
Like there's kind of like that era, and then there's the early era.
Yeah. I think people are sick of his later era.
I think people would rather him go back to a more mainstream movie feel.
I don't agree.
I mean, maybe,
I don't agree.
Maybe not even mainstream, but I think I will say I do agree with some of the criticisms of like his earlier films like Tenenbaums and Rushmore, and even Darjeeling Limited. Like there was much more of a raw emotion.
Yeah.
The characters were a little bit more
open.
Yeah, and there was more of a more roundedness. Whereas as his movies go on, they become more like characters, and they become more like cartoon characters, or more stagey, like you were saying. Like it's more theatrical. But I still really like it.
Yeah, I think I'd say I put an asterisk there. I think Asteroid City is the closest he's probably come in his newer era movies to no. Not even with the relationship angle?
No, I think that's definitely, especially because a lot of people didn't like it. I think...
well, they're wrong.
Yeah, and even though we all really liked it, like, I think Asteroid City, French Dispatch, and Phoenician Scheme, like, and Henry Sugar, the short films on Netflix that he did recently, like, they're all very much part of his full sort of push towards that very theatrical, very stagey, and I keep wanting to use the word cartoony, but it's not the right word. But you know what I mean? Like
I do.
It's larger than life sort of thing.
Caricatures,
and it's
expressionist almost.
Yes, yeah, and it's it's a little bit over the top, and but that's, for me, it's not a terrible thing.
No,
I go to see his movies because of those reasons.
Like it's like
I was watching the French Dispatch the other day, and Dad walked in and he's just seeing like this weird black and white movie, and he was like, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's the Wes Anderson movie. When did this come out? 2021." I'm just like, he's the only guy making these kinds of films that are getting wide releases.
Yeah, I mean, it's also cool that he's basically been able to make these movies pretty consistently, and seemingly without a lot of compromise. I'm sure he would like to do more or get bigger budgets or whatever, but everything he's done has been, it's not like a lot of other filmmakers where they just can't get stuff made. So, I mean, that's cool that he's consistently...
But he also has that reputation as the auteur director where people want to work with him.
That's the other thing,
and they're willing to not get paid as much to work with him.
Yeah, right? Probably,
because he's the artiste director. He's one of those auteur kind of...
Well, Benicio del Toro said that it's every actor's dream is to be offered the lead in a Wes Anderson movie.
Mm.
And I thought that was interesting because it says it speaks what Nathan was saying, where apparently he's famous for not having large salaries for his stars because he doesn't. His movies, relatively speaking, don't cost that much, and they probably don't make that much at the box office compared to a Michael Bay movie. Let's just say.
I was reading. It was an interview with someone. I was reading it recently. I forget who it was, but they talked about working on a Wes Anderson movie and how strange it is because the atmosphere is so nice and welcoming, and everyone gets paid the same wage regardless of how many scenes you're in. Doesn't matter. Everyone gets paid the same, and no one knows how big their role in the movie is going to be until you get to set. And Wes is like, "You."
That's cool.
It's very, in a way, it's chaotically unorganized.
There was another movie,
but it always works out.
There was another movie recently where they did that, where it was like profit sharing and everyone get paid this sort of same. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
Emotion is Dead did it.
Yeah, but I'm thinking
Something
like maybe an American sort of movie. Yeah, but yeah, I think just on a technical level, I like seeing his sets and production design and costume design and the music and the color and
like there's moments in all of his, especially his more recent movies, where just from an artistic kind of creative genius aspect, it's a visual feast.
Yeah,
like.
So if nothing else, even if you're not feeling connected to it, if nothing else, it is a visual.
It's visually. I don't know what the right word is, but it's fulfilling.
Yeah,
you know what it is. He has a singular vision, and he also has the ability to put that on the screen. Whereas, like a lot of filmmakers can't get that image from their head to the silver screen.
Yeah.
Whereas he's one of those people who can. He can make his sets come to life through old school cinema trickery too.
Yeah,
and it's like it's got the color and the vibrance.
I'll use this comparison, which is probably not the best, but I feel like because a lot of people who have been pushing up and not liking Wes Anderson's later films, have sort of feel like he's turned into self-parody, but I feel like no one does it as good as him.
Yeah,
and. I don't think it's like someone like Tim Burton, whose earlier movies were so amazing and so well done. And then I think Tim Burton fell into self-parody when his stuff got so bad and was CGI garbage and Johnny Depp was playing the same character over and over again. And I was like, okay, what are we doing here?
I mean, what's self-parody? The man does really good at framing. Like, is that self-parody?
Yeah, and it's like, I think we talked about when Beetlejuice 2 came out and we're like, well, Tim Burton seems like he wasn't having fun making movies for a very long time until Beetlejuice 2 came out, and it's like now he seems to have some of that spark back. And I had problems with Beetlejuice 2. I don't think it's very good, but it's like, okay, he's passionate about it. Whereas Wes Anderson, all his movies feel like
he's all passion all the time.
Yeah, it's like he's getting to make this cool stuff and he's making it well. And
I also think his stories are just interesting too. Like even if you take away the set dressing, right?
That's a great point.
It's like he is. Okay, you can attribute self-parody to his films.
Yeah.
But he's still telling good stories.
Yeah, it's like in addition to, I love just watching his sets and technical elements and whatever, I also just like the way he constructs his they're like little plays or little, they're like, he's like, chapter 1 and it says this.
Vignettes,
and there's like, and they're like little vignettes and little...
Look, specifically regarding the Phoenician Scheme, I had some problems with the writing.
Yeah.
A little bit. So specifically, it's about, I forget the character's name.
Zsa Zsa
Gabor or something.
No, Zsa Zsa Gabor's the actress.
Karda or something.
Yeah.
Korda, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Zsa Zsa Korda, it's about, he's like a European businessman, tycoon, weapon smuggler, but X, Y, Z, whatever. He has a lot of money and a lot of kind of pies.
Yeah.
And it's kind of about him shoring up one big last deal or whatever else.
Yeah.
And he has to convince his partners to pay more or whatever the case may be. It's all vaguely explained, but that's not important really.
Yeah, and basically he's got all like 9 sons and 1 daughter. His daughter is a novitiate like in like nunnery school.
Played by Mia Threepleton.
Yeah, fun fact, she is Kate Winslet's daughter.
Oh wow.
And yeah, she's about to take her vows and he's like, I'm naming you sole heir. So you have to help me get this deal done, and once it's done, you'll be taking over like the family business. And she's like, no, I'm a nun.
Yeah.
And he's like, shut up, you're taking over the family business. And she's like, why me? You've got all these kids. And it's like this fun little adventure where they go across this area called Phoenicia, where they're trying to set up all these various business
kind of vaguely,
dealings.
like, I guess, culturally inspired by like North Africa and the Middle East. That kind of.
Phoenicia is an area like around
like,
Lebanon, Cyprus, I think. And it's set in 1950, so it's got that cool Wes Anderson period feel, and like the old kind of cars and costumes, and old guns and lots of hand grenades. That's another thing. His movies are hilarious.
They are hilarious.
All his movies are funny.
I don't understand why people don't like his films, and I don't understand why this was not popular at Cannes.
I think it's okay not to like it, but the reaction of hatred or straight...
I think I said to Callum, a lot of it would be professional jealousy.
Perhaps.
Some of it would have to be. They look at Wes Anderson living his best life, making these weird films, and they're like, I'm stuck in the studio slavery, I hate you.
I think we've talked about this before, where on paper, his movies should be annoying to me. Like, like, oh, this is hipster garbage.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm obsessed. I love all these movies. So I can understand people brushing up against it and being like, oh, no, he's hipster. But the absolute, like...
If I was in Cannes... and I saw that scene where Benicio, in a dream sequence, we'll say, Benicio del Toro's character cuts open like
that was awesome.
A goat's belly or whatever, and gold spills out. I would have just stood up in the audience and started clapping like a seal.
We would be clapping there like monkeys.
I'd be like, Tuscan Raiders. Like, I'd be like hollering like a Tuscan Raider.
As soon as the first black and white
I just like groaned. I was like, oh.
Yeah, Nathan was like, best movie ever.
Yeah.
Because how can you... Yeah, like, I just, again, to reiterate, sorry to go on, but... How can you be at a place like Cannes, where it's like the lifeblood of cinema, one of the few big festivals which is supposed to celebrate?
But I mean, the Frenchies, like Cannes is known for very extreme reactions on both ends of the scale. You have those 15-minute standing ovations, and then you have people booing at the screen. So it's just like that's how they do things.
If we were there, we would have gone to a fist fight in the audience. We'd be like, don't you boo. Fight me.
When the credits were rolling, or was it before or after the movie? But I turned to Nathan.
Before.
Yeah, and I said, don't boo me. I know what makes you...
Yeah.
I've seen what makes you cheer.
Your boos mean nothing to me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is a case of that. It's just like the people like absolutely... hating on this movie would then turn around and tell me the most garbage movie of the year
Avatar
is the
2
best.
was great. But like again, like I'm not. The filmmaking is outstanding in this film. I had some problems with the script. That's neither here nor there, right?
Yeah.
But again, all the black and white and afterlife kind of imagery was fantastic, and it's
also Benicio del Toro.
Oh, he's
such a good performance.
Again, he was also good in The French Dispatch too.
Yeah,
Michael Cera. Amazing.
Michael Cera.
Well,
that's another thing
we have to talk about. Yeah.
Even Michael Cera was like, I don't know why it took him so long.
He's like the Wes Anderson actor.
Yeah.
Except this is his debut.
Yeah.
I want to see what their first meeting was like. Do they just look at each other and just not say anything and just nod and just go, every time someone went to talk, they went,
But it's Callum. Like we were walking into the movie and Callum was like, oh, people are like freaking out that it's like. Of course, Michael Cera is in a Wes Anderson movie, and I think I stopped walking, and I was like, "Hang on, no, surely he's been in one."
No,
and I'm like, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
They're made for each other.
Even Michael Cera was like, "I hope it's not the last time."
Yeah,
and they shook hands at Cannes to promise they'd been.
Yeah, and honestly, like. I mean, we really vibe with his like awkward kind of humor in a lot of, especially his later movies.
Well, even that banger we watched for Christmas.
Yeah.
No, and even that Christmas movie that came out, Christmas in Miller's Point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like stuff like that we really vibe with. So him in this movie was top notch.
Yeah,
so good. I mean, everyone's good in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was so freaking good. I always like to give a shout out to Jeffrey Wright because I love him. He's great. And he was a really important part of French Dispatch.
Yes.
And I do think that even though people rubbed up against French Dispatch and Asteroid City, and didn't really like those, perhaps
I don't care.
Yeah, and perhaps maybe one of the reasons was because of like the less raw emotion and less rounded characters of his earlier movies. I still think French Dispatch and Asteroid City had maybe perhaps more of an emotional resonance and core than Phoenician Scheme, which I think has maybe a bit less.
Yeah.
So I will agree with those criticisms, but that doesn't make this the worst movie ever.
No, I mean, it's fine. You can make different types of movies. And they might not have the same kind of
also
raw emotion and family drama that, say, Royal Tenenbaums or Darjeeling had. I'm
sure people have talked about this, but I haven't seen it. I can't think, like, his earlier, maybe his movies before, from Isle of Dogs and previous to that, his movies have been mostly straightforward, whereas Asteroid City and maybe a little bit of French Dispatch and Phoenician Scheme have, I think, more religious, spiritual, and sort of philosophical.
Wes is getting a bit older.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting to highlight as well. Like his career, as much as you might push up against his change in career, like there is
the GOAT. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there is a different sort of
trajectory
that he's going for. That he might not land. You might not like it. I might. Even sometimes push against it, but it's interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because like the heavy themes that he deals with are dealt with in the lightest way he can. So it's this thing where, like you were saying, it's like very theatrical, very cartoony, even though that's an awkward phrase to use. Yeah. But it's also dealing with disconnection. In this instance, right, disconnection from your children. Yeah. It's dealing with legacy, death. You know what I mean? Like the weight of being, in this instance, like, the king, like, not literally the king, but like the guy. Yeah,
and questioning your mortality
and Asteroid City dealt with similar themes too, where it's like, the feeling of
the dead, the grief and the dead
and that type of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, that's interesting as well, and I think, like we were saying, like Phoenician Scheme, I think. Maybe, I mean, all these movies have this element, but this one especially felt like a live action cartoon. I was talking to a friend of the show, Rafal, who came to see the movie as well, and we were talking about like live action anime adaptations or any live action, any sort of cartoon to live action adaptations. And I said, one of my big problems is when they make live action movies based on cartoons and anime, they just CGI everything. Yeah. And they just green screen everything.
That's a good point.
I'm like, so what's the point in making a live action version of a cartoon if you're just going to animate it anyway? Do it. The best live action adaptations are the ones with the most practical elements.
And I don't know if you noticed, we were watching the credits afterwards and it came up with like the carpentry department.
Yeah.
I might be thinking of French Dispatch. Either way,
they would all the movies would have carpentry.
Either way, and there's but there was like 150 guys.
Because Wes built his set.
That's not to say there are no visual effects in Wes Anderson movies. There are, but I think when you're making a movie, and this isn't based on a cartoon or anything like that, but when you're making this kind of felt like a live action cartoon, but everything was like built. It was all sets and practical, and it felt tangible, and I like that element of it. Whereas, like, yes, it might have felt stagey and cartoony and whatever. But I like that.
But in a weird way, though, that we know, like, it feels stagey and feels play, and there's probably an element of just theatre craft in his making of how he films, right? But it's one of those things where, but you can still tell that that's real. In a way, it's still built.
And it also makes his movies worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're a visual treat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a guy on a famous Twitter commentator, Paul Scalise, at Lindyman. And his thing is whenever he talks about film, he always says, and this I don't agree with him about this at all. He says that narrative is not important for film. He says at all. He thinks that story doesn't matter in movies. That's what books are for. But he says that he actually really liked Phoenician Scheme because he says movies are primarily only a visual medium. And he says you go to the movies to see nice looking pictures on the screen, to see moving pictures that look great. And Phoenician Scheme is a great example of a movie that looks really nice on the screen and the story is visual and it's told visually.
I'll be honest, I
don't agree with him.
Yeah, I disagree with what he said, but I think film can be so many different things.
Yeah. I don't agree with him at all.
Yeah. Look, for me personally, I think everything that Phoenician Scheme does well French Dispatch does better.
Yeah, I think French Dispatch might be better. I'd have to rewatch.
That's not to say the Phoenician Scheme is bad.
No.
It's still well worth seeing, especially the big screen if you can.
It's like what we were just talking about. Talk to Me is so great.
Yeah.
Bring Her Back is really great.
I guess that's the theme of tonight.
Yeah.
Two really great movies may not be as best as the movies that have come slightly before.
And obviously,
but they're still good.
Wes Anderson, his last 3 or 4 movies might not be as good as his older movies.
But they're different.
But that doesn't still mean they're not.
Well, yeah, the
awesome.
reason I mentioned that concept of film being primarily a visual medium is because, like, even if you don't like his narratives, I think that his movies are still always going to be worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah.
Just for the visual richness that he brings that no other filmmaker really comes close to.
Yeah, you could turn the audio off and just watch
and you're still going to enjoy it.
But like we were just talking about earlier, like I like the plotting. I like the sort of the chapters and the little vignettes, like the little and
I still think
the little
obviously
inscriptions and title cards.
The family drama in this film is not as good as the family drama in Tenenbaums, right? But I still think he's got the sauce.
Yeah.
But that's also not the point of the movie.
No, but my point is, like, I still think he can tell a good story regardless of what people think.
Yeah, I think, like, this might be similar to my Tim Burton point and might not be a great example. But I think one of the reasons I'm such we're all such Nolan stans is because even though Nolan's earlier movies might be quote unquote better, like I like everything he does, and when he does it well, and he does it practically, and he does it big, and it's worth seeing on the big screen.
The man's love of the craft.
Yeah. And so I kind of like how, Nolan started, and then he's ended up at this place where it's like he's become like Super Saiyan Nolan. And I think Wes Anderson is the same, where he started at a certain place and he became like Super Saiyan, like he became the most Wes Anderson version of himself. And to a lot of people,
that's a turn off.
That's a turn off. But to us,
it's a turn on.
Like, how far can you go? And we were even saying, it's like the black and white sort of supernatural sequences in Phoenician Scheme. It's like, what if he did a whole movie of just that?
Oh man, that would probably become my favorite film.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it's film school wank, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's different when he does it versus like, because there's a lot of film school wank stuff where we're just like, all right, buddy.
Yeah.
But when he does it, I'm like, yes, please. Can I have some more?
Yeah, 100%. We love you, Wes.
Yeah. Come on the show, Wes.
We'll do nothing but jerk you off, mate. Please come on.
I could probably think of nothing worse.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
No, he'd love this little station. He can shoot it very symmetrically.
Yeah, that's it. We'll make it nice and symmetrical for you, Wes.
Yeah.
I reckon that's all we've got time for tonight.
Oh, can I offer you a hand grenade?
Oh, yes. If you got one spare. Thanks for listening, everyone. You can catch a Tuesday review on some of the social media platforms. Mm-hmm. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Newsmast, Blue Sky. Mm-hmm. Also on Substack.
Yep.
The TuesdayReview.substack.com and YouTube.
Are we still posting on Threads? No. Nah.
Yeah.
Blue Sky is where it's at now.
Yeah. YouTube as well at Tuesday Review AU.
Yeah, check out our YouTube.
We're on Letterboxd. I'm Nathan B_90.
I am channeldrifter.
And I'm callumtuesday.
Please rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platforms wherever this, and give us 5 stars. It helps a lot with our visibility and getting us noticed.
5 stars.
We'll be back with next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. Adios, cousins.